are the Raters of Frames. I am Abe Epperson, and I'm joined by Michael Swaim.
We rate, you listen.
Very apt.
This is the process.
What's going on here? Today we look over a micro-budget indie film, Patchwork from 2015. It's a story about three women who interact with just a safari of like awful dudes.
Yeah, it's a real cavalcade of horrible guys.
And then they're Frankenstein together one night. When they awake, they go on a rampage of murdering said dudes in the name of finding the surgeon that did this to them. And we want to point out before we begin that this is a part of the Pick the Flick tier on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, which if you throw some scratch at that tier, like Wesley.
Thank you, Wesley. You can make us watch something we would not otherwise watch.
Exactly.
Like this. Yeah, we like to cover I don't know, Jurassic Park or, Shawshank Redemption. So instead we're going to cover Patchwork, super indie 2015 movie.
Yeah,
horror comedy.
And we want to also shout out Holly, Wesley's master.
Hi, Holly,
for making this happen, and happy birthday!
Hope you
like the fucking podcast.
We're glad you're here.
All right, let's do this. All right, so this movie has like Reanimator vibes, right?
Intentionally so. I mean, the very first shot is a guy practicing his moves, the classic move.
Yep.
Hey, it's good to see you here. Or how do you come here often? And you can tell he's just practicing. And it pulls back, and he's practicing on a severed head, a very gorily presented severed head.
Right.
So you know what you're in for right away. It's gonna be over the top gore and offers that, like you said, like Reanimator, don't care about science at all. In fact,
it's just magic.
One of the funniest jokes to me is the doctor Garrett, who repeatedly says, well, this is scientifically impossible that you're alive, so I don't know what to do now because this doesn't make any sense. It's this is not possible, and no one tries to pretend that it is.
Yeah, it's just magic. And it's, of course, a light green fluid, just like Reanimator.
Yeah.
One thing that occurred to me is when I first saw this film when I read the, tagline, I was like, that's kind of cool because Frankenstein is itself seen as feminist lit, right? Mary Shelley had several miscarriages. If you haven't taken, AP
art history,
literature, and
Quit
some
lit,
literary
101.
theory points out that Frankenstein's acts as a form of twisted motherhood, something she investigated with what was that damn character that
Dr. Frankenstein?
Elizabeth Frankenstein.
Oh, okay.
The one that Carrie Ann Moss played in 2015. And then anyway, so
that is interesting. I never thought of that. Frankenstein as a metaphor for bringing something to life that shouldn't be alive. As a twisted form of motherhood. It reminds me of Pet Sematary, right? Kind of the same theme as Pet Sematary.
Totally. And it's gothic as fuck too, because she's just Mary Shelley's just sitting there with multiple miscarriages, and her reaction is fuck all this. I'm going to invent the gothic novel. So
pretty cool. Big ups
to
Shell.
Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the opening scene. I wanted to point out, kind of to me, an out of place but kind of cool credits sequence that's Saul Bass inspired. If you're not familiar with Saul Bass, he was a famous 1960s movie intro animator
and posters and stuff.
If you saw Catch Me If You Can by Spielberg, they kind of ape his style, and they do that here.
Most of the James Bonds of a certain era are Saul Bass intros.
Yeah. I also want to point out, which will probably be a treat maybe to listeners who know about this film, in said credits is, I know my eyes perked up when I saw costume designer, because the costume designer of this film is Dakota Keller, who we worked with several years ago a lot, like Stumbling Dead, another zombie film. Dakota worked. She worked.
It's that Dakota
with me.
Holy shit!
Yeah. We're Not Alone. That was another Craig Studios project. She did a lot of Honest Ads as well. So that's a deep cut. Pretty cool,
in
huh?
Our sphere, yeah.
Small world here in Hollywood.
It is, and it's a smaller world still because this is an independent, low budget horror comedy. And hey, we made one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of kismet.
This is our
here.
world, baby.
I feel a lot of empathy for the people making this film. I know how hard it is on that budget. I know that they have big dreams and big hopes, and they want to make a killer movie. And let's talk about it. Here it is. They did it. It's amazing just to finish a movie that's of this level.
It's so hard, man.
Yeah.
Everything's against you. We talk about it all the time in several of our podcasts that it's like the thing with filmmaking, like most, I assume, jobs, but definitely creative ones where you're making up dumb shit and then asking it to be reality.
Yeah.
You need an element of control that is so laser sharp. And independent films don't have that. Like, they just don't have the money. They don't have the time or resources. They're always every Hollywood feature is against the clock. We talk about like Waterworld and shit like that, where it's like they have $300 million, but it's still like
think about it
fucked.
When you have $300,000.
Yeah,
it's a whole order of magnitude more difficult.
It's just like you were calling in favors. Everyone's pretty good at their job, but not necessarily like they're trying to break in and they haven't learned all the tips and tricks yet. There's just a lot to navigate and to come out with a film that is coherent, funny, charming, any of those.
Your actors are all 20-somethings because that's the age at which you're willing to do this kind of shit for free.
Right, exactly.
I noticed the cast is always early 20s.
Yeah.
Like ours was.
I want to kind of go through the movie just because there's just little bits.
People haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it.
I'll be honest. When I heard the title, I thought it was going to be maybe like a touching romance in the European countryside. Then when I saw the image and read the little description on Amazon, I was worried that it was going to be a centipede thing, human centipede thing.
Yeah, and we were going to get.
And it's not. It's not gory gross in that way. It's fun gross.
Yeah. In fact, I think they shied away from it. I'm not a huge gore guy, but I thought that they showed that they were good enough at some of the blood effects that I was like, you should do more of those. But you know, independent features.
There's many shots in this, and it's a good cheap effect where someone swings something at someone off frame and then blood blows back onto their face. Because, baby, that's just spattering you with a paintbrush from off camera. You got that shot.
I noticed one of the first images is, like you mentioned the shot where he comes down with the needle. It's funny because you can tell, like, some of the needle bleeds out and shoots at camera, which wouldn't happen if you were stabbing someone with a needle and injecting them. It wouldn't splatter the camera, but they must have just liked it because they're like, ew. But anyway, not to pick things apart.
No, explain the movie.
But also to pick things apart. Yeah. This movie's in parts, by the way. Part 1, you know, because the bodies are parts, and part 1 is Jennifer. So we get introduced to the first one of the 3. And she's a bit bossy, logistically minded woman. She's having a birthday at a bar, but people aren't showing up because they suck. She's also having an affair with a dude who is just basically a walking Bluetooth. And she's interrupted by one of the Weasleys, who we know from her old life. I believe it's Fred Weasley.
Really?
Actually.
From Harry Potter. Holy shit.
From HP, one of the twins.
He's like top billed in this movie, or he should be.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, he's been in Harry Potter. He fucks. Yeah, and he knows her from her college days, and like we assume like a more wholesome part of her life, but where she wasn't invaded by this like professionally minded coldness, and she like kind of bats him away. Yep. So we already have like a setup. What is she's turning into a bitch, and so we gotta correct that.
You said it, not me.
I said it. I know.
It's
I guess
true.
sometimes I go that far, but she's attached to her professional friends who don't really care or like for her,
letting the dude that she's having the affair with totally blow her off and take advantage of her.
Yeah, so she's alone because no one comes to her birthday, and she The one person wanted to connect with her. She said no. That makes her prime Frankenstein fodder, Mikey. So she gets slugged in the head. And we get part 2.
Well, while she's waiting for the guy to come fuck her,
That's right.
Dan, the affair guy, and he never comes, or he would have found her blood and stuff. So, yeah. So she gets dragged off. Part 2, we wake up and immediately 0 to 100. You know, we only got 90 minutes. We're a small budget. 3 women are patched together into a single body. And I do have to consider Jennifer the main character only because the effect was clearly done on her body. You know what I mean? Like she is physically...
she also plays the Brumblefly.
She plays the thing. She's the creature. Yeah.
Right. Which is a tough thing to display, you know, using contacts.
Oh, yeah.
Using... it's a weird way to
she has half brown hair and half blonde hair. But,
yeah.
The human face is seamed into thirds in this.
And let's talk a little bit about now there's 3 voices in her head and she wakes in this like scientist dungeon / lab. And I want to talk a little bit about, because you gave the stipulation, which I think is good. This is all fine. It's just magic, but it's very unique in this type of tale because it means the scientists like mashed up the brains and made it work, which is like, that's amazing. Or there's some magical realism in terms of like memory and identity and thought is carried through just flesh, which is
can
also
be
weird.
Mushed together. Yeah,
but there's 3 people now vying for control of the body, which gives...
If you're aware of the Star Trek Voyager episode with the Borg Unimatrix comprised of 3 individuals, you basically get the gist. They can hear each other's thoughts, and a move I did think was good because it's cheap and it's effective. We cut into a little room that represents their subconscious where we get all 3 actresses and they can talk to each other. Yeah,
like a null space that represents
their
brain, but also is the same location as like where the Frankenstein is
so they just
interacting.
All you got to do is shut the set down, clean the set, throw them in there, have them do that dialogue scene. Honestly, shooting wise, they probably do the dialogue scenes first. Then bloody up the set. Yeah, very smart.
Exactly. If I were doing it, I'd probably mix it up because sometimes you'll find something in performance and then be like, oh, we should create a little beat for that.
Yeah.
Because it's sometimes the note
all right,
for some
Dr.
of the recording.
Movies.
Hey, man.
Don't redirect. Don't
you put me in a cage,
direct.
man,
yeah.
and I'm directing that cage,
That's true.
baby. Speaking of cages, she runs into a catbird in a cage.
Owl cat, specifically. An owl cat.
Who gets a moment in the sun at the end, which is probably the best joke in the movie.
I mean, since we brought it up and we're jumping around, we can say it. The best joke in the movie, hands down, is when they finally confront the evil surgeon, and the evil surgeon's plan to stop them is to free the owl cat, and he says, "Fly, Archimedes, fly!" And the owl cat just flies out of the room, and he just goes, "Fuck!" It's funny
great.
In the moment. It's funny.
Just an owl cat doing what we all know an owl cat would do.
Fly away.
Which is just get the fuck out of here.
Fly, Archimedes.
So she basically escapes because the scientists and his cronies are terrible.
Okay, they're like from a sketch, and that's an interesting aspect of this film. The scientists themselves don't act like Reanimator. They don't act creepy. They don't even act funny creepy. They act funny. They act like they're in a sketch, and they're like 2 bumblefucks who shouldn't be doing this job. They've never successfully pulled this off. They're thrilled that this worked, and they don't fully understand why it worked. And they're just like, it's hard to describe. The main dude has a very specific energy, which I call sketch energy. There was that group we used to fuck with sometimes called Magic Hugs. Their main dude reminds me of this dude. So if anyone knows Magic Hugs, you know what I mean.
Well, actually, we can pull... There's a reason for all this, which is the director is Tyler McIntyre, who has since worked on films like VHS 99. He did a segment in that, which is pretty cool. He also made recently It's a Wonderful Knife, but if you're a sketch head,
you know I am.
Back in the day, If you recall a troupe Sasquatch sketch comedy, that's this crew. That's this writing team.
I
and stuff.
don't know them.
So they're kind of like us, man. They're kind of like us.
Kindred souls.
Like 2009, 2010, getting in the comedy minds via internet sketch.
And then expanding into horror comedy. Yeah.
And then horror comedy as like one of our first movies. Kind of strange. Pretty cool choice. Yep. Wesley and Holly. Yeah. So where are we? Yeah, we talked about Catbird.
Owlcat, yeah.
She escapes Owlcat. She's got no money though, and there's no like. In fact, yeah. So when she escapes, one of like the underlings is like, "What the fuck? Did someone get out?
Did it work?"
Because the other interpretation, which this gets a little spotty in Act 3, but this doesn't work that well. They did not expect her to wake up. This is version 85, and all 84 basically have failed. In other words, that's the vibe we're supposed to be getting. So that's why they have like lax security, I guess. But she just walks up, like as she's freaking out, leaves the building and runs, gets into a taxi, which is another funny joke. I thought just the taxi guy's like, fuck, man, are you high? Like,
why do I have to deal with this person? Yeah.
Get out of here.
But again, magically, no one is scared of her, and no one thinks that until she starts killing people. No one goes like, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay, miss?" They all go, this crazy person is interacting with me, and you're like, she's not crazy, she's chopped up. Don't you see that she's chopped up? Yeah.
And she has no money, she has no property, she just roams the LA streets, and we get kind of like a montage that like basically makes her look like an unhoused person, so she becomes invisible to the LA skyline, to all the people.
Around this time, one of her fingers falls off and she staples it back on, which is important because this is how they realize they can't feel pain. And not feeling pain is key to their rampage later. Right.
It's like their superpower. And this is because they go to Jennifer's house, who we've been introduced the backstory of. And the blood is still literally on the floor. She staples her hand back together, like you said. And she goes to her computer, gets fired from her soulless professional affair dude.
Yeah,
the flame.
He's both. He's firing her from her job and as his mistress simultaneously.
Right. He's just the worst. And just because she's been missing for like 4 days. So she also puts together, she's like, I know who I can go to. There's a creepy med student I know who's Fred Weasley. Maybe we can go to him and he'd know what basically to do, or like maybe he did this.
Maybe he did it is the main thing. She suspects
him. Because if you know someone in your life that you're like, oh yeah, they could cut up and Frankenstein some bodies, maybe it's you who should question your life choices.
Yeah.
That's just all I'm saying.
And they realize that the thing they have in common is they were all at that bar last night. They were all at the same bar. And so clearly someone picked them or tracked them from that bar or removed them from that bar. Like that's why it's them versus anyone else. And then
that's one of
they sort of get to know.
I just wanted to point out one thing on that, just because I would say that this is where the indiness does show itself. Like that is a beat that to me is a lot of time spent in the movie having the characters figure out some pretty obvious shit. Like, we should just move on. Like, oh, we're a Frankenstein. Oh, there's multiple voices in this head. Oh, someone did this to us. Probably takes twice as long as I think the audience would get it. And I think that's a key thing to independent movies, is that like the more you got to play this delicate line of being like, you got to dispense the information, but you also got to treat your audience as intelligent so they feel respected. And it's kind of hard to do if you can't just like make a prop or something like that.
Yeah.
Like a very simple kind of thing.
Couldn't agree more. My main issue with the script of this movie is that there's too much dead air or filler.
Yeah.
It's not what. So when we made Kill Me Now, we showed an edit to a big movie producer. You knew he was powerful because he came in like pajamas, like a tracksuit. Everyone else is in nice suits, and he just comes in his underwear and is like, "Show me your movie." And at the end, he said something that really was wise, which is, "It's not screwed together. It needs to be screwed together," and that means every single moment is fighting for its life. Every single moment bears some kind of load or means something, and that's something this movie doesn't really do. So like in part one, the Jennifer part, it's a really good idea. I get what you're trying to do, where you have the friends say no, and then she gets her pathetic little cake, but everyone's already gone. But those things all could have happened more quickly and with less dialogue, and I think that would have made the scene stronger. But as an indie director, you're trying to fill time. You can barely get to 90 minutes based on the amount of money you have, so you let actors talk. Why not? You know, you could use the extra screen time. But yeah, if I have any problem with the script, it's that it's not really screwed together, as they say.
Yeah. Another way that it was presented to me is I had a teacher in college who said, like, what editing is every moment holding a gun up to every other moment and saying, I deserve to live.
And you don't.
Which I always like that. Yeah, because you kind of have to do that. Like, which one of this array of like moments in a movie does the thing that I need to get to the next moment? Okay, do that and nothing else. You know, like
now
you don't need
any other
versions.
moments, right?
Yeah. And so do the clearest, do the best one, the funniest one, whatever your priority is, but one that gets it clearly done, and don't do multiples. You know, unlike Tim Robinson, triples is not best.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to part two, AWOL. You were mentioning how the trio gets to know each other, and they realize that they can send thoughts and feelings to each other, and they're all very different. Like Jennifer's all business, and the other two are like warmer, more free spirited at the front. Like that's how they're presented.
Madeline is shy and has confidence problems. Ellie is really bubbly and a typical blonde stereotype.
True. Yeah. And another banger joke for me was the Jennifer's roommate. Just, we never see her again. We didn't see her before, but while they're having a montage and they're getting dressed, and they eventually find an Invisible Man reference where they look like the Invisible Man. That's because they're trying to hide that they're hideous.
They end up with if you haven't seen Invisible Man, a trench coat plus gauze wrapped all around your face, dark glasses, and a fedora. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Jennifer roommate bit, it's just a random phone call where she's like, I got my fucking, like, I have a crazy fucking roommate. I hate it. I want to get out of here. I can't leave though. I have such bad credit. I wish I could move, but I can't. And that's just like a funny, like,
and they go, it's 2. My credit is 2. Yes, it's possible. Your credit can go that low. Yes.
Yeah, it's just a random non-needed scene that there's several of that speaks to what you were just saying, which is just filling the time with fun things. And since like Tarantino did in Pulp Fiction Royale with Cheese, I think independent features have been doing this, and probably rightfully so. You need to, if you want to minimize like the locations you have to go to and beats you have to do in your,
have them banter,
script,
have them shoot
just have
the
them
shit.
banter,
shoot
the shit.
And we got to thank,
jokes,
I think we got to thank Kevin Smith as well for making it okay to do that.
That's right. That's right. That's just a whole movie of throwaways. All right. Part 3, Ellie. So we get to know the one of the other two. And you mentioned Ellie's like kind of a socialite. She's pretty and laid back.
Bubbly.
But her main problem is that she's just constantly surrounded by bitches. And Ellie has equally vapid friends and acquaintances. Self-absorbed artists is who we see. And he sucks the most. It's all kind of
the pretentious dude.
Yeah, the pretentious dude who's just kind of like demanding everyone's attention.
And she clearly she's cruising. She's DTF. She's down to clown.
Yeah, she wants to get drunk, have a good time,
take a guy home. But she can only find creepy, horrible, pretentious men, basically.
Yeah,
as she gets drunker and drunker, which of course is not the best way to be. And she ends up, as you do when you take too many shots and you're that age, back at a frat house.
And her, because she finds a guy she likes, but his buddies are trying to film them having sex, a real rock bottom moment. Because that's what frats do. I mean,
It's not what they don't do.
It's not what they don't do.
And the movie
We've heard
treats
of
it again. This part is very sketch-like because they're sort of hidden there, but not hidden. She notices, but the frat guy just keeps saying what a good guy he is, and they vouch for him like he's a total good guy. Doug is filming it, and other Doug is watching. It's very jokey. This is not the horror moment. This is the joke moment. Yeah,
but she runs away. She's like, I'm not feeling this. And they're like, baby, wait. But she leaves. And then we get a horror moment. She gets hit by a car. Kind of the instantaneous side scroller that you're used to.
Yep, she gets hit by a van, actually, because it's the van. It's the van the orderlies are in. Yeah, the white van.
Part 4, makeover. So the Frankenstein is now fully decked out in like a disguise and visits Jennifer's genuine friend from college, Fred Weasley, and she spills the beans, and apparently she's got a sweet tooth. Did you notice that little detail?
I don't understand that, so I wanted to stop down and talk about that. The Frankenstein monster eats weird shit really sloppily, which is a funny visual, and I get it. But why though? Why does being a Frankenstein is like they have 3 different taste buds all vying for control?
I think so. I think, yeah, they have 3 different taste buds, and they are also in a broken organism somewhat. So like candy they're doing on top of tortillas is fine.
Spaghetti with chocolate sauce and shit like that.
Yeah, I think that's just all it meant to convey. It's not like a very specific thing, but it's a nice little touch just because, yeah, you want to show... It's like The Fly. Brumblefly can do amazing. Jeff Goldblum can do crazy gymnastics, and
but he's got to eat boogers or whatever.
But he sometimes throws up boogers. So yeah, that's kind of that's what I got from it. You know what I'm saying?
This is the point where Garrett says it doesn't make medical or scientific sense that you're alive. That's his opinion as a doctor.
Yeah.
I noticed they stiff him. They leave him with the check and wander off. And now we take the turn into what I would call revenge fantasy. And that's actually the offer that I thought was cool because, as I said, I was worried it would be Human Centipede and basically beating up on our women the whole time. And up till now, the women have been having a bad time. But this is where you start to see, oh, this is what this movie's going to be, is they get revenge one at a time on all the shitty dudes.
All the shitty dudes.
They see Dan, the affair dude.
Illicit lover.
With another woman at a motel. Not
Bluetooth
his wife.
man.
So this is his new mistress. And they wait in his car. I don't know how they got into his car, but that's an old horror trope. They're waiting in his car when he gets in and they kill him. And it's unclear how they kill him. They just kind of beat him, I think.
Well, I don't know. This one, because we see over the top of the car, and so it's obscured, but something pops like a melon. So she's pretty great at murder.
Maybe she's super strong
faces.
For no reason. Yeah.
For no reason. Well, I mean, it's that reanimator fluid, baby. And at this point, for the second time, there seems to be something that they dropped that this bothered me because this sometimes happened. It's almost like there was a cut scene. There seems to be like kind of a fourth voice in the room starting to develop. A demon voice comes out at times through the women.
Through especially
I thought
Ellie.
they were going to do with... Yeah, I thought they were going to do... I think it's just... What it's supposed to be is just an affectation of Ellie. Ellie's just quirky and sometimes...
Has a demon voice.
Has a demon voice. But like, I thought it was going to be like, also there's what represents the reanimator fluid, some desire to kill. But as you'll find out, they go a different way.
Oh, they're all in on murder immediately. They're all fine with it.
They're all fine with it. And that gets us to part 5, which is kind of the twist that we're talking about, which is the Madeline chapter, the last one of the 3. And I think this is legitimately a great maneuver by the movie. Coming late in Act 2 or like near midpoint, we see her as a lonely woman. She's got kind of low self-esteem. She's shy, awkward with this dude who's once again a total dick. And she's being hit on by, like he's like an
Tom
actor
Blake.
model. Yeah.
It's exactly like Tom Jane in Arrested Development.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Blake.
Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a great banger line to me, which is as they're leaving, because she's like, let's just get out of here. He goes, she goes, do you need to pay? And he's like, we'll be fine. Like he's just total, like he's stiff in the establishment. And then twist. We cut to her in her kitchen. She opens her refrigerator. She's a serial killer, and she has the douchebag tied up. Reversal, good maneuver, I think. Madeline is fucked up.
I mean, now as the Frankenstein monster, she's taken part in a murder, but she's been doing murders this whole time.
Yeah, so now the question becomes like, how much is this Frankenstein logic, or is this just all Madeline? Like, so now your brain is getting something, whereas like a big question in the middle of Act 2, whereas it could have just kept going as a revenge fantasy that succeeds or doesn't. You still have enough rails.
Yeah, you do. But I prefer to think that Madeline is influencing the other two.
Yeah. I don't think they need a twist. This just happens to be one that like resolves well. But like, yeah, in the middle of you should have at some point at your Act 2, depending on the movie, it's almost usually like a midpoint. Or the midpoint is just the idea that there is a new kind of question that arises in the audience.
That you weren't thinking about even before, right?
So because usually Act 2s can be a slog if you don't have enough development with your main story. So it's usually useful if you have a simplistic story to add,
a twist
on top
in the
in
the midpoint, yeah.
Exactly.
And this leads us directly to part 6, which is called Rampage, because basically they've decided it is okay to kill guys. We're gonna go kill everyone now, and they do. They who do they kill? Let's see. I logged it all.
We just go the useless artist.
The useless artist. Do they kill? They kill all the frat house guys. Killing the frat house guys is very funny. He keeps saying, but I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy.
I'm a good guy. Yeah, that's
I'm such a good guy. There's, I thought chipper music as they beat the shit out of this whole frat house.
Yeah, very Kingsman.
Yeah, it is. Low budget Kingsman. Yeah, I see that.
And I thought they did a pretty good job. It's it's probably the coolest shot in the movie. It's the headphone oneer. She knocks on the door and they try to swat her away, and then she puts her headphones in. We get the diegetic music of her headphones playing, and then she just undoes these fools, beats the shit out of the frat
it's all
house.
one shot, and it involves like breakaway tables and jumping through windows and stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely the shot where they blew their wad, financially speaking.
Yeah, a little bit. They had to really fuck up the space. Yeah. And she's like throwing knives, but she's also, I don't know. There's joy in watching her destroy these awful scumbags. My only problem is that, and once again, it's just an affect of the indie, I wish we saw it more. She should explode their faces with her hands. Like, they should have joy in a way that is just like unrestrained.
If you had more money, this is where the gore would go. Yeah, this is where you really would push the gore.
Because
gore effects are tough, dude.
I think it's just the sheer number would up the budget, because like they could do it. The head stab, there's a head stab at one point. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like the blood like explodes out of the brain, and it's a well-designed shot. So you kind of hide the fact that it's like a paper mache blood-filled, prop.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyway, that's where we're at. I really like that this sequence. More mayhem, please.
Yeah. And they fuck up the orderlies in the van. So we've met these, and talk about Kevin Smith. There's these two orderlies who get body parts for the surgeon, and they are just constantly shooting the shit and bantering. They're like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's all they do is
the
banter.
Royale with cheese.
It is literally, they talk about a burger, literally.
A chicken sandwich.
Sorry,
that's right.
Let yourself enjoy that chicken sandwich. Be free. Who hurt you?
It's also Big Lebowski vibes, because like the point of the conversation is just they're talking about sauces.
Yeah.
And he basically has a line at one point that isn't this, but it's basically a paraphrase. Like, it really tied the room together, talking about the sauces. And I was just like, oh yeah, this is just basically Big Lebowski. And
but the point is they rampage over these guys too.
Yeah.
They get rampaged.
Yeah, she beats the shit out of them
till they tase her and she has to flee.
Also, one of my favorite moments is that the driver dude, he gets out of the car and she's already pulled the passenger scientist out of the van and is just going to town on his head with a brick.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wheels around the front of the car, and this horrible scene sees her going to town, and like a demon, she looks at him, and he's reaction is immediately just to be calm. Like he's like, whoa, we're just at work here. Like
we're just doing our job. Yeah, we're just
it's so
observing.
funny because it's like, no, dude, that your buddy, he's over. Like
it's
he's
beyond
done.
that
like,
point. Yeah.
First off, no we. There's no more we in this situation. Second off, you're not justifying to this clearly mad person. Just be chill, baby. Be chill. So that was pretty hilarious to me. Is that they kind of yada yada. The scientists are bad. All the dudes are pretty bad.
Except
they're either
Garrett.
selfish and they're horrible, or they're just dum dums.
Except Harry Potter boy.
Except Harry Potter, who's the perfect boy.
Which is why she goes to see him for help now.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and she also grabs a file from the van. In I assume the hope that she'll get more information about
on the
who
original
did this
surgeon,
to her.
right?
And she returns to Fred Weasley to help her kind of suss this out because he knows med stuff because he's a med student and all that. And she also and then we get this awkward, like dating scene,
like a meet cute.
A meet cute. She judges his video game session, but then like the other voices in her head are like, "Oh no, he's cute, he's fine." So she's got that.
Jennifer
voices,
thinks
cool.
he's a nerd and a loser, but the other two girls think he's nice though. We like him.
Yeah, he's nice though.
Yeah.
I like him. Yeah.
So he's 2/3 succeeding with this woman.
And I thought it was kind of nice that like she, from her previous battles, has now like is losing, like she lost her arm, or didn't lose her arm, but her arm detached and stuff like that, which happens several times. He's literally stitching her up, so that's like a clear indication of like, I'm cool with all this, or I can.
Although he does
this.
politely suggest that she stop her rampage. Maybe you should stop the rampage.
That is one of the most unhinged lines in the whole movie. Fred Weasley says, "You should tone down the rampage. I'd hate to see you hurt." Because that's why
she's already undead. Jesus.
Yeah, she's undead. She's murdering civilians, and your worry is, "Oh, but I don't want you to get hurt." It's just a movie full of monsters, basically. Every person, including Fred Weasley.
Including Garrett. He's just a different kind of monster.
Yeah. But we get that kind of date scene.
They bone,
like
don't they?
She kind of gets, we have an awkward kiss, some disgusting slow-mo kisses, and then they fuck, and she is rough.
Aggressive.
And
she doms him, and he likes it.
Yeah. And she loses her hand during the sex scene. So after, and then I thought there was this little moment, a tender little moment after the hardcore fucking, which is that we kind of push on Weasley and see like, oh, he just wants to cuddle kind of thing, but then we pull back and they do a little do-si-do with the actor, so that it's no longer the Frankenstein, it's just Jennifer with no scars. Right. What do you think that telegraphs?
Oh, that Jennifer, of course, but also because she's the one that shot him down the first time. She's the one that says he's a loser and a nerd. Obviously, they're going to fall in love. That's how you do a will they, won't they, right? It's funny that this movie, Clark Gable was doing this shit. Like, it happened one night, has the exact same structure of this romance as this does.
Yeah, the question I guess I'm alluding to, or I'm wondering for myself, is the movie is doing so much work for you to be like, okay, they are an amalgam, and their past is over, and they have to get over it. And in this moment, they're like, there is a single identity that took over.
That is dominant.
I guess
in this moment.
Yeah, in a way, it might be seen as it's the final death. It's the final scene of Jennifer. Anything after that, yes, she has a voice, but her actions aren't the actions that really, like, it's not like Jennifer is running the show. It's
yeah, but I also think
singling out after this.
And there's the idea that having sex with all three of them would have been creepy, like if they were all experiencing that. Yeah.
So they're kind of just avoiding.
He's a good boy, so we keep it clean.
Right, even after sex, it's like, let's not have a scene where they all three talk about it, although that might be hilarious.
Dude, that scene totally could have been in here. They just chose not to do it, and I see why,
right.
But I could have written that scene in a way that was funny and tactful.
Oh,
hire me.
Hire me, baby. So in the morning, she wakes up and she sees Weasley burning the file she found.
Yep.
Because, again, thinks that she's going to get hurt if she knows the address of the place. She will go on a rampage, and I don't want
and
you to do that.
And he wants her to not rampage. That's his stance.
Yeah.
He says,
simple,
it
man.
doesn't matter who did this to you. This is who you are now. Like, we can be together. Don't rampage. Give up on your quest.
don't rage, baby. And yeah, she does not do that. In fact,
she is going to rage even harder.
With the dramatic irony going on, they're like, well, maybe he's right, and maybe we don't, like, this is what it is now, and we don't need to be, we're not the revenge types. It's not going to help. Common revenge trope in storytelling. Yeah. But Madeline is like, no, it'll be perfect. We'll kill them all, and we need to kill these scientists. They deserve it. And then kind of convinces the hive mind to be like, no, we're going. We're not listening to Weasley. And that's where we get part 7, which is Madeline 2, because we're going to get a reveal here of more detail about how twisted Madeline is.
Brings all the twists, essentially.
Yep. Because it turns out she's requested and paid for this. So you've been working under the assumption that these scientists are like this gritty startup and are doing unconscionable things
black market
to women
surgery,
in order to do this. Because that's in tone with the movie so far. The movie has been saying men
They're
are
just
kind
creeps.
of awful.
They're creeps. Yeah.
And they reveal that it's actually a self-sabotage.
It's actually a plastic surgery office. And Madeline came in and said, I want to be perfect. And they're like, well, we could do this weird thing where we mash you up with 2 other women. And she was like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Extreme plastic surgery will fix me because she is pretty fucked up. Not saying that people who want plastic surgery of any kind, but she clearly is on the farthest end of the spectrum.
Especially because the actor is gorgeous, and that she has this weird complex where she thinks she's ugly, but she supplies her own donors. So it was literally her who knocked Jennifer out. It was her driving the van that hit Ellie, etc.
Yeah, and we get these kind of retroactive, like, so it wasn't what we thought. I mean, it is, because there is still a surgeon who is more or less a modern Frankenstein. So he's pretty fucked up. These people, the kind of orderlies that are running around helping, don't seem to want to stop her. Maybe they're terrified, but they seem like, oh, okay, yeah, if you want to get your own parts, you want to do your own murders. We don't typically murder. We scavenge for body parts, which I think is hilarious. Where are they finding these body parts? I guess morgues or whatnot. But she's like, no, I want to choose live.
Well, also, point of order. How did Ellie and Jennifer not figure out the twist, given that they all psychically share minds now?
I guess that Madeline is good at hiding it.
I guess. I'll give it to him. Okay, so Madeline was
I'll give it to him, but that is
stuff.
One that I would almost request like an explanation or something like that. Like she's good at hiding
If
it.
I were making this movie, I would have one line in there that explains how she did that, but
which is
fine. I'm nitpicking.
Which is funny because we don't, on Frame Rate, we don't typically do that, but I guess it's because when it's an indie feature and you're like, oh, I could do this, like just give me some time and this could happen.
Oh, you're saying,
which is what we're doing.
I'm giving them more suggestions than I would give.
Right. Yeah. But I do it too. I'm also doing it. I'm looking for flaws because I think it's just how our brain works. We're looking at our peers. And these would be totally different movies. Obviously it's made by one person or another. It almost doesn't bear kind of suggestion, but at the same time we can't help ourselves because it's like so easily attainable, and they're doing a good job, like they're it's so close to the what we all want to consider the quote real thing. I don't know Tyler McIntyre, but I assume I've been in his situation so often as a director that I'm like, you're always unhappy with your work a little bit. You're always kind of like, this should be like top tier stuff. I need a better lens. I need a better lighting rig or something like that in order to make this shot work. Or I just need more time to get this shot work.
Time is the big one. Yeah.
Time is really the big thing because time can solve all problems. Really, if you think about it.
If you can just wait until you die, all your problems are solved.
Yeah, if you, or you'll just be turned into a Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That also can be solved by time. But yeah. Where were we?
Part 8, I think.
Yeah, I think part 8.
Which is interesting that there's 8 parts because in a classic movie structure, there are 8 steps. So I really feel like they literally did like the Save the Cat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or if people are familiar
Kinda,
with the
yeah.
Dan Harmon story circle, they
similar.
they point to their 8 steps. So we're on the final step, step 8. The movie's wrapping up now.
I want to
Miscreations.
point out one thing, which is that the surgery itself is completely unhinged. Like when we cut to this, star pupil, this guy, this, young young upstart scientist, who's the
Reanimator
surgeon.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he is not even arguably a genius. He obviously can raise the dead,
Right.
but the process itself is him with a table saw cutting up parts while he smokes.
Yeah. And then
And he's
stapling them together and then shooting it up with green goo. So really it's the goo. Like that's the
It's the
only
goo.
that's the only
Whatever
science
happened-
here. Whatever that goo
Yeah.
is, it makes it work.
I also love that he rummages through body parts like in trash bins, like no apparent organization. Like this surgeon has no skills apart from whatever he can do. He can generate this goo, and that shit is next level.
Well, there's a line in the previous part. What's your success rate with these surgeries? I don't like to keep score. I'll tell you, I've learned a lot about what not to do.
Yeah.
So
which is
he's
great.
really just bumblefucking around and using this goo he found.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so yeah, part 8. She returns to the lab now knowing the address from the file that was almost burned. And the surgeon is happy to see her which I thought was a delight. He's like, yeah.
He says,
like, you're back.
You got to understand, this has never worked before, so I am over the moon right now.
Yeah. And he also lets slip casually because he doesn't understand quite what's going on in their brain, I don't think, because he just calls her Madeline.
Yeah.
And he kind of lets slip, and the other two figure out finally. The other shoe falls.
The Madeline's the traitor.
She's the traitor. She paid for this, and she murdered the other two.
Yeah.
And Madeline's argument is that that we're all broken. I watched you from afar, and I know myself. We're all kind of broken. But the three of us together are perfect. We solve each other's sandwiches. So when the other two refuse to play the game, and they're like, no, we want out. We're gonna like excise you from the trio, kind of thing, by whatever means necessary. Like you're fucked up. You fucked us. And Madeline is like, well, I'll cut your pieces out. So it just becomes a funny little scene where they're
The
basically
body
threatening
is
each other.
fighting itself and ripping its own pieces off.
And it physically, when we cut back to reality, out of that null space of the mind, we get an Evil Dead-esque attacking yourself sequence where like an arm is turning against you. She takes out her eye, which is pretty brutal.
Mhm.
She almost drinks poison, which I love Ellie, because Ellie was like, I'm just gonna
kill us all.
down.
Yeah, fuck it.
She's got eye on the prize, dude. But then the doctor says, no, this is too much. This is too much. We get the owl cat,
Owlcat joke, yes.
and then we get also he wakes his zombie drone army, which I kind of want to talk
Because
about.
I thought he had a terrible success rate, but then all of a sudden
it
he has a
hasn't
whole
worked.
zombie army.
I do recognize that, so it sounds like you're with me. I do recognize that they're two different. Like the zombies are like drones that
And
like
Frankenstein is a living
like,
thing with a soul.
and he has like a remote that makes them act and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So like it's a different beast. So like I could totally just like say that's fine, and this is 2.0 and he's happy about that. But it's just like it's weird to me that they do no explanation.
Given
it's
his
not
total
like,
incompetence the entire film.
even
yeah.
just a shot of prototypes and like just props, that could do so much damage here, and they just kind of yada through it. I mean, it's a sketchy offer. It's funny, the idea is just like a doctor has like 4 zombie drones just on the table that will do his bidding, and they do. And she gets tied up and secured to a chair, but meanwhile Weasley breaks his hand to get out of the cuffs, like real Gerald game style. He sees it on he sees TV.
Tom Blake do it on TV. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
Tying
the
it all
actor,
together.
which I think is pretty funny because it's like the
It's
easiest
just meta.
thing in the world.
Yeah.
He's like, and then you just slip out, baby. It's perfect. And then he does it, and you can hear a bone crack, but it seems like it doesn't really affect his life because
No.
in like 20 minutes he's just in a casual dialogue scene with the doctor. Meanwhile-
Doctor reveals that his plan is to take her apart, and even though she worked, he's going to
Yes.
ruin her again because he wants to learn how that one worked so he can make dozens more. So he's going to destroy the Frankenstein.
That makes sense
So
to me.
now they're threatened.
And that's when Weasley arrives. He shows up because he also knows the address, and he's just promptly knocked out by the surgeon with a gun.
With a gun. The surgeon has a gun.
But this crucial amount of time where he has to, steal away from the lab is important because our Frankenstein frees herself from the doctor's chair and just starts sawing up the zombie thugs. And this is another montage of joy, I would say, where it's just like some of the best blood effects in the whole thing. I mean, it's your big finale, and that's why they included the zombie beats, is they're like, I feel like we should just have body parts, but since we have so few characters, we can't really just like disposably early in Act 3 get rid of the surgeon or anything. But you could have probably taken out some of the scientist lackeys. But then you have the bigger question of, is that moral? You know, zombies, it's pretty cut and dry. Fuck zombies. So I see why they did
Another
it.
big laugh line for me is when he's dragging the unconscious Garrett around, the surgeon, and he says, I can't wait to take the spine out of you. Make a short person very tall.
Yeah,
that's what he's gonna do with his spine.
Yeah, he's just thinking about what he's gonna do with spines.
Make a short person very tall.
And then there's another like geography thing that irked me, which is that he drags him away off screen from like the
and then they're all together
building.
again.
And then Weasley's just there on the ground, and she's like, "Oh shit, Garrett, what's up?" After she's destroyed all the zombies.
And it's like, I thought he dragged him away. Where is he? Yeah.
Where is the surgeon now? But then we get an interaction where the doctor comes back and shoots Weasley, so he's super unhelpful. I mean, he can definitely fuck, so that's cool.
He can play Castlevania pretty good.
He gets knocked out immediately and then shot.
And
he's just a liability.
And he says, this really wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I love that line because it's true of his character. His character is like, I don't even like you
shouldn't have done
anymore.
all this stuff, yeah.
And that's a sad story, to be honest, because of how it resolves. But the ladies have more interaction inside their brain where they're kind of discussing, like, all right, this needs to end now. We can't fight over this body. You know what? We're going to have a majority vote right now. We're drilling Madeline from their brain.
They're going to lobotomize themselves with a drill, hoping that they kill the Madeline part. It's pretty fucked up. They do. It works.
And they do. It works.
They drill themselves in the head.
Oh, and this is the point where Doctor summons Owlcat. My bad.
It's his last ditch effort to stop them is release the Owlcat. Yeah.
And then so when that happens, she's just like, now she's in control. She has him tied up, but she's worried about Weasley, who's dying, who's actually dead. I think we actually see a shot where he's like motionless. And then it's kind of, so we get the feeling that everything's wrapped up, like there's no more story here because everyone's, basically taken care of. But what are we going to do with the surgeon? Well, you probably guessed it. We do an ellipse. The final scene of the movie is Garrett wakes up and he's a Frankenstein, perhaps mended with the parts of the surgeon.
So now they can be together.
Which is hilarious ending to me because functionally
Two
and
Frankensteins in
thematically, it all makes sense. We're actually going to have that.
I saw it coming.
The new Diablo Cody movie is a Frankenstein.
Oh, Lisa Frankenstein.
Lisa Frankenstein. So it's very similar to that. In fact, who knows? Maybe that movie will end with double Frankenstein. It's pretty good. Place to go, but it also begs a lot of questions about first off, poor Garrett. He was trying to be nice the whole time. He just died. Also, the big question to me is that he is Frankenstein in the same way, cut down the middle and to the side of the cheeks. So it's almost like
who are the other people that are in him? Is that what you're saying?
My question is, did he need that?
Couldn't they just revive him?
That was broken.
Yeah, he was a Frankenstein.
Yeah, but I guess that's not how it works. I guess you need to do the Frankenstein
or that
part
surgeon. That
serum.
Surgeon is dumb enough that he's like, the only way I've done this that it worked was this way, so I'm just going to replicate
that's also
that
true.
way.
I mean, it feels like It feels like you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater by cutting up the face there.
Feels like you're chopping the baby up
gut.
with the bathwater, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's how you end a movie,
That's Patchwork.
baby.
Two Frankensteins in love.
Yep.
Wow.
It ends.
Wild
what
ride.
a wild ride.
And I appreciate
Very
having
sketchy
seen
movie.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
It took me back to Shoot and Kill Me Now. It really did make me
It really
feel the
did.
feels
There's
about
some
that.
joy in this level of micro budget where it's like you're also your own studio somewhat. I mean, you're hoping that someone will come in and distribute your film. But my guess is the production companies, weren't breaking the bank. And you're trying to get this thing made. But you don't have a brain trust that says you can't have that scene or we don't like that scene. So it's just raw
authentic
ambition
and raw.
And if
you're listening to this if you're someone listening to this podcast wondering if you should go watch the movie, even I would say if you're not busy, sure. But it's not, because it's an experiment. Yeah. It's not like, oh, this was a sweeping tour de force. No, it's indie. It's thoroughly indie. And if you like indie shit because you love that filmmaking spirit, you'll like it. If you like polished stuff, go see It's a Wonderful Knife, because that's these people with more polish,
Yeah. And I think it's just, it's also, there's a Venn diagram of people who, and I assume Hawley is one of these people, where it's just like, this is the Reanimator vibes, the kind of feminist critique and, just scenes where it's just like, oh, these guys suck, is a lot of fun. There's an interaction just with any movie where it's like especially in comedy, where you're almost always just putting two elements together and saying like, what if these two things at once to make the comedy? If you like those two things, like you're going to have a great time. So if you're into the, kind of slapstick horror and you're into kind of, these scenes where, just taking out this litany of dudes, you're going to have a good time.
Well said.
That's all I got, man.
That's all I got. And for a movie that's only 40 minutes longer than this is, I think we covered it well.
I think we covered it well. You know what? We don't have to become a Frankenstein's monster. We already are one.
Oh, you, me, and Adam? We could do it, dude.
I'd be down. We could get a threesome going.
Yeah.
Let's have a threesome.
Let's
me, you,
be
and
a Frankenstein threesome. Well, you said that in a weird way, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
As long as
it in the right way.
All right. Well, we'll work this out off mic.
Yep.
And then we'll get on mic. Oh yeah.
Then we'll get on. Yeah. This is now not a podcast. This is something else, baby.
Anyway,
thank you again.
Thank you for the pick flicking.
Thank you for the Wesley and Holly, and you can be like them too. It's a very like the pick the flick tier. It's tough to get. We all understand the problem, but we can't really justify doing all these podcasts we do and more than one a month. So there is a backlog, and we understand that. Like, just bear with us. We'll get back on time.
We will flick your pick. It just takes.
We
will
time. Flick your pick for sure. And yeah, it's just a fun way to get involved with the community. I know that a lot of people like these types of podcasts, so we're going to do more of them. And we're also going to do, this is coming out on Patreon on the 22nd of January 2024. What else do we got coming up? Oh, we got another one-upsmanship on Mass Effect 2, baby. We got another frame rate. We're covering Dead End Drive-In. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. We got more Star Trek Next Futurama coming out in the next week. And the return at some point in the next 2 to 3 weeks of Director Piece Theater and Inside Dads. All that and more if you come to the patreon.com/smallbeans. You don't get all that content. Not necessarily all those shows if you're stuck on the free feed. So swing on by, have a good time. We like to joke here. What else?
Well said.
Anything?
You can hit up the shop at patreon.com/smallbeans/shop.
Yeah.
The only thing there right now is my novel, but soon there will be a rap album and a comic book as well.
And you're also working on the audiobook, right?
And I'm working on the audiobook version, which people will probably prefer. I'll probably sell more audiobooks than I did the physical copies, yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to you off mic, and it was like, Yeah, it's just a very slow process because you have to get it
Incredibly
right.
slow. Yeah.
And you want it to be right, and it's a lot of words. It's a book, so like
Yeah,
bear with
it'll be
Michael
like
as he
an 8 or 9
gets it.
hour thing when it's done.
But
so,
I
yeah.
am really looking forward to that because not only are we one of the best thinkers and the best writers, you're also a pretty good talker.
Thanks, dude.
So that will be a
And then you don't have to
multimedia
read
effort.
it. I know listening's easier than reading, so
It is.
It's a nice way
My
to get
eyes
out
get
of
all.
it.
Even though I read from screens all day, for some reason my eyes still get tired in a book,
oh,
which is terrible.
poor guy.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Louis.
Read my
Yeah, fuck
book.
off. Read books.
All right.
You hear?
We're out.
Read books, motherfucker.
We're out.